Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. This is Erin Bradley, your host. And if it's your first time here on the show, welcome aboard. I've got a great show in store for you with my friend Alice Chen. If you've been listening for a while, this is a new topic, something we've never discussed here on the podcast, and something I'm really excited about nerding out with Alice about. And I'll let her share her whole backstory. But Alice is basically a rock star. She is a serial entrepreneur. She's an investor. She's currently the general partner of a private equity fund. And she'll share a little bit more about that background. But what's really cool is how it's led her in the last 6 months to a year to become obsessed with learning more about this AI revolution and how AI can radically simplify and streamline your business. And so, as she went down the rabbit hole in her own life and business and saw how ChatGPT and AI was able to basically replace assistants, virtual assistants, analysts, all kinds of things, she then started coaching other business owners on how to do it. And it's funny because just this morning, inside of our coaching community, the collective, I often bring guest coaches and speakers and trainers and service providers. And we actually had somebody on the call this morning talking about this very topic. Like, are you using AI in your real estate or mortgage business? And if you're like me, maybe your eyes are glazing over already because it's overwhelming for you, which it is for me too. But the more I'm learning, the more my mind is blown. And I think that's what is going to happen here today. I think your mind is going to be blown. And you're probably going to want to call Alice as soon as we're done with this conversation here because I've been talking to her for 5 minutes about what she's been up to, and I'm already thinking I need to hire you, Alice, because I said to her before, your brain is filled with information mine might not ever comprehend, but I understand the importance of it. So I love having you on the show here today, Alice. I so appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Erin.
This is going to be fun. So, Alice, we always start from the beginning. Give us a little bit about the backstory, how you got into the industry you're in, what your role is that you're playing right now in the industry, and then we'll kind of move our way into this discussion around how AI has started to change your life and business and how we both believe it can change the lives and business of every single person listening here.
So I've done quite a few different things and interesting things. So where do I begin? So I began as a corporate lawyer in Vancouver, Canada. So that's where I'm from, although now I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I, was a junior lawyer drafting securities documents, fund offerings, and doing mergers and acquisitions. So that was very good training. I did that for 3 years, but I have always been very entrepreneurial. So I have always felt this calling to do something in business. And so I realized after 3 years at a major national law firm that I didn't want to continue to be a lawyer forever. So it was very much like an episode from the TV show Suits. So I was exactly living the life of one of those junior lawyers doing due diligence and drafting documents until quite late. And sometimes when the deal comes, it's 30 days, 45 days every day, working every day, long hours. But that taught me that I really enjoy deal making and I love transactions. I then left the legal practice 3 years into it because I then wanted to start my first business. And I'm a very passion driven entrepreneur. So typically I go where my passion takes me. And you mentioned AI. So I'm super obsessed with AI right now, and obsession is the right word. And I'll talk more about that. But about 16 years ago, I was obsessed with wine, believe it or not. So being, in Vancouver, we have a region called the Okanagan. So it's basically the Napa of Canada. So I was super geeked out on wine appreciation. I actually went through 3 levels of the wine appreciation course. That's internationally certified. And at the time, I wanted to create a business that required me to travel. I'm a huge traveler that required me to actually taste wine and required me to exercise my skills that I acquired from practicing law. So negotiating, pitching, selling, and I have this love for wanting to connect. Uh, the two markets together, right? So the market of wine producers in British Columbia, where I grew up, and as well as a market in Asia. So my family is from Taiwan and I speak Mandarin, but at the time, 16 years ago, I felt like I was disconnected with my language and culture. So I wanted to kind of fuse all those elements together. And I created a business that exported Canadian wine to the Greater China region. So within 3 years, because I was pursuing my passion and very on point with the timing of everything, I would say that's one of my superpowers is knowing when to work on what. So within 3 years of founding this business, my export agency exported about 16% of the national dollar export of Canadian wine to China. So that cemented me as a legit business person. So I was named a Business of Vancouver Top 40 Under 40 in 2013. And from there, I went back into mergers and acquisitions. I started a boutique advisory firm, and that was a success as well. And it got acquired by PricewaterhouseCoopers, an accounting firm in Vancouver. And so I went there and then, met up with the people running the family office practice. And then that parlayed into us leaving the mothership and starting multifamily office, working in finance, working with investing, with funds, fund formations. I had also amassed some personal capital throughout the process. So I started to invest passively. So I'm not someone that likes to do tenants, toilets, renovations, and things like that. So I quickly, basically, honed my skills in investments, and then as well as actually meeting my mentor James, who is now my business partner in this fund that we have. He's the other GP. We're 50-50 GP. And so he was starting his first fund about 12 years ago. So he had seen me mention on newspaper, business news publications in Canada a couple times, and locally in Vancouver. So contacted me through LinkedIn, and then we met, and I said, "Hey, I would love to learn everything about private equity." Right? It's a buzzword. Sounds really badass. Sounds complicated. I know nothing about it, even though I was already, practicing lawyer. I learned, a lot about corporate finance in law school, but really the schooling doesn't really teach you kind of some of the practical stuff. So I said, well, teach me everything about it. I'd love to learn everything. And so I became an early investor in his fund 12 years ago, did really well, went on to help raise funds for him. And then went on to actually branch out to study under other fund managers, the best fund managers in Canada, and then became a fund of funds manager myself, aggregating the best real estate funds in Canada. And so that kind of began my path as a professional investor. And so all the way, taking everything I've done in terms of founding businesses as well as professionally investing, that took me to today, where I run a private equity fund focused on land development thesis. So that's kind of the last 16 years in a nutshell.
Okay, so talk us through this land development. So you are raising capital. If someone is listening and they want to invest passively, and maybe someone's listening and doesn't even know much about private equity or syndication, can give us the kindergarten blueprint of what it looks like to work with you, to invest in you, and the types of investments that you're specializing in with the land.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So I want to go over some of the basic terminologies because sometimes I find that when you're looking at entering into a realm or entering into even just learning the knowledge of a realm, what is typically kind of the most difficult thing is just learning the terminology. But once you kind of pick up on the terminology, it's kind of like learning a new language that it's not so hard. It's actually a pretty simple concept. So I'm sure your audience, everyone is from the real estate realm. So everyone's quite familiar with real estate investing. And there's active investing and then there's passive investing. So active investing would be, flipping, for example, wholesaling. You could be managing short-term portfolio. You could be buying, rehabbing, and then selling the house. There's so many different ways to make money in real estate, but there's also the different bucket, which is investing passively. So what does that mean? That means becoming an investor. Typically, we call that role of LP, limited partner. So LP is probably something that everyone's heard of. So if you're LP in a real estate syndication, it means that you're passively invested into one project. So real estate syndication, typically it's a singular asset. Could be an apartment building, could be some sort of development project, could be anything. But you're at LP because you're passively invested, and you're relying on the GP, the general partner, who is doing that work. So that person or that group of people would be actively managing the syndication. So if you're LP, you're passive. If you're GP, you're active. So the difference between real estate syndication and a private equity fund or real estate fund is that a fund typically is a singular thesis typically. And within that thesis, you'll have multiple projects. So the great thing about a fund versus a syndication is that you have the diversification, even though you have the benefit of investing into a concentration of the thesis. Of course, you have to understand the thesis and gain confidence in that thesis that you're investing in. But as an LP, I think it's great because you get the diversification and you get the GP's expertise. So for our fund, we come from Canada and we're finance people. So we look at everything under the sun without emotional attachment, right? So for us, it's looking at numbers first, looking at the market, looking at the economic cycle. So we actually took the time, we took about 3 years to study what is really happening in the US real estate private equity space and what would be a good thesis to focus our attention on for the next 5, 10 years. And the reason why we do that is because as a private equity firm, when we invest into a thesis, it's all of our bandwidth, all of our resources and time and energy. So we don't want to work on something that is a very fleeting problem that kind of is here today but is gone tomorrow. So we want to focus on a problem that's also big enough so that we can continuously work on solving the problem by deploying capital into the solution of a situation, right? So in our case, we looked at everything, but we eventually decided on land development because we realized, well, number one, I don't know if the audience knows this, but we have a 4.8 million single family house deficit in the United States. Well, why, such a large number? It's actually pent up demand from the 2010 financial crisis. So we have been in a systematic pattern of underbuilding in single family homes. And when you think about single family homes, the need for those, it's not just people having babies and setting up new families. It could be because of the demographic shifts. People are needing multiple households, so maybe parents downsizing and then their children are setting up their own households. Could be people splitting up, needing separate households. It's a variety of reasons. And there's also kind of a trend towards BTR, build to rent. So worker housing around, whether it's a data center or could be a factory of some sort, or even just like a metropolitan area that houses a lot of the labor force. But all these people need to have homes where, their children can go to a nearby elementary school, junior high school, or there's amenities, community center amenities, or other type of amenities, right? So 4.8 million deficit. Okay, so that's the problem. And how do we solve that problem? Well, in order to do vertical construction of houses, so you need to have buildable pads, you need to have finished lots. So the public companies that are America's number one to number five home builders, these are companies like DR Horton, annual revenue $35 billion. There's Lennar, there's Pulte, there's Toll Brothers. A bunch of these companies are actually public companies. And as a public company, the ownership of land, believe it or not, it shows up as a liability on their balance sheet. So they do not like to hold a lot of land because it's not good for financial ratios, not good for stock pricing. So they typically outsource the work to a third party company. So we, as a fund, we're finance people, James and I, we take the time, we identify the best in class land developers in the country that do the work of land development, whether it's land entitlement or it's post entitlement horizontal development. So, horizontal development refers to putting roads and infrastructure, water, sewage onto an entitled piece of land. So once you have the buildable lots, then the national home builders that I mentioned can then come in and start building the houses. But before then, they got to have the land prepped into finished lots. So that process works like this. So let's say our operating partner in horizontal development they typically will get a phone call from one of these top home builders. So DR Horton could say, "Hey, we would like to build 1,000 homes here, and create a master plan community here. And a lot of this is happening in a lot of Sunbelt states and other states as well, but a lot of momentum in the Sunbelt states. So then they will say, okay, well, we want to build 1,000 homes here. Can you buy this entitled piece of land from us at $30,000 per lot? Let's just say it's a hypothetical number. But once you've done your horizontal development within 2 years, we're going to buy it back from you at $70,000 per lot. And we will enter into a contract with a national home builder. So on day one, we have an exit built in and papered and contracted. So before our horizontal development partner does anything, they know how they're going to get out, who they're going to exit to, and at what kind of profit margin. So you just have to focus on execution at that point.
Awesome. And then for investors who think this sounds like a great investment from a passive perspective, which I love passive investing because we got really burned out on active investing. I mean, we bought and sold. We bought so many homes. We did the Burr method. We did house hacking. We did short term rentals, long term rentals, and finally started looking at passive investing. And it's so nice to be able to invest in vehicles that bring the returns consistently, and then we don't have to do a thing. It's just like
Exactly.
like mailbox money basically,
Yeah.
and then we have access to the appreciation of the investment as well. So what does it look like for an investor? I mean, do you guys have minimum investments? Do you have and preferred returns? Like, does it vary depending on the investment? Maybe we don't need to get that granular and we can just have people contact you if they want to learn more. But if there's anything additional to share.
Yeah, great question. So we work with accredited investors and the minimum's 100,000. We do have two classes of investments. So one class would be anything up to 500,000, and then that's class B, and then class A would be anything above 500,000. So for any investor though, our preferred return is 12%. So when you see
Wow.
preferred return, yeah, in a fund, what does that mean? That means that unless we deliver at least 12% to you per year, the GPs make nothing. Like I will make zero if I can't even deliver 12%. But we, of course, expect to deliver way beyond that. So then what happens after preferred return is that we have a split, what's called a split with the GP. So the profit split is, for people that invest up to 500,000, we have a 60-40 split. And then
Wow.
so it's the preferred return plus whatever's remaining, then 60% to the investor, 40% to us. And then for the people that invest 500,000 and above, we then have a 70-30 split. So altogether, we're looking at a targeted annualized return of 25% to 27%. And that means that when, if you invest 100,000 with us, when we exit the project, you will get back, depending on how long the project is, you can get back roughly like 1.58 to 1.8, depending on which class the amount. So it's a very good way to actually quickly multiply your investable asset base. And I'm a big fan of passive investing. I continue to hold LP positions in multiple funds, in addition to my own, of course. And I'm just such a big fan because there's also two types, So there's a type where you just get a drip, like you want to have that instant income, right? So whether it's quarterly distribution or monthly distribution, you want to get a drip, or there's another type where you don't get the instant drip, but you're accelerating the growth of your capital. So we belong to that second bucket. But it's a great way to actually multiply and very quickly, you could hit like 2x, close to 2x kind of return on your money.
Incredible. I love this. So, talk us through how this has led to this obsession you now have with AI. Like, where did AI come in, and then now your passion for helping others implement AI into their business. It's so fun to hear your story and the way that you kind of follow the breadcrumbs, and I also love the fact that I didn't mention this earlier, but I love the fact that you're about to take off for 3 weeks and go on yoga retreats all over the world and go to Finland, because you're not just here being like a workaholic and a slave to the hustle culture. You're actually building a life through the strategies and the businesses that you've built that give you the freedom to travel when you want and to live your best life, which is a huge reason why I have you on the Pursuing Freedom podcast, because that's what we're about here. Like, the goal is to build a life you don't need a vacation from. So, yeah, talk us through how this has led to this new chapter that you're exploring now.
Yes. So I've always been pretty obsessed with high performance habits and biohacking, and which is why I'm going to Finland to do a sauna wellness retreat where we do sauna, a different type of sauna every day for 10 days. And then after that, a yoga retreat in Northern Europe, Northern UK. And I'm very grateful for the ability to do that because, well, one, I have invested passively. I have succeeded in my active businesses where it gave me the capital to invest passively so that I have passive income which I then, also parlay like some of the AI stuff that I'm implementing for my own business and for, helping other people in similar businesses like improve their operational efficiency so that they can pursue that life of freedom. I will say that I'm actually not the earliest adopter of AI. So I'm not a technical person. I don't have a coding background. I actually was very spoiled. I've always had an assistant. So since the age of 25, since I started working as a lawyer, I have always had a full-time assistant. And this would be like an assistant sitting in the same office space. And then, in the more recent years, because of COVID, then it kind of migrated to more remote EA or remote VAs. I have teams of VAs and remote vendors and, people that help me with different things. But I gravitated towards AI because, well, one, I know that AI is happening. So whether I acknowledge it or not, whether I lean in or not, is happening. And I don't want to miss the train because this is not just a train, it's actually a rocket ship. What like once you miss it, it's like missing the internet or missing the email, missing social media. It's like it reminded me of kind of circa 1990s, 1993, early 1990s, where internet became a thing but then seeing, our grandparents kind of struggle to understand what's this thing about internet. So it feels a little bit like that right now, whereas there's going to be a very real AI divide. And so I would say if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, and I don't know what's happening with AI, don't panic. Like I'm not the first one to have logged on to ChatGPT 3.0 when it first came out 2.5 years ago. I actually, in fact, only started to really work with GPT and GPT is just one of the many tools. There's Claude, there's Perplexity, there's probably like 20 different tools that are in my arsenal today that I use, to help me be a superhuman, So and then it's an ongoing thing. You always get better. So I would say about 10 months ago, 11 months ago, almost a year ago, I we were setting up for our fund, right? So, I of course was driving the formation of our investor deck. So typically, in my experience from before, typically that would take a couple weeks because you need to work with kind of an early, like a first year, second year investment banking or private equity analyst type young person. And then I would say, okay, this slide is about this. Okay, we need to have pull these type of research. And then we got to chart that on Excel and then visualize that and do this and do that. And the whole thing is very tedious. It's very painful. It takes about 3 weeks. So last year, just well, one, out of curiosity, because I've been hearing about how great GPT was, and two, because we're a new fund. So we don't have an analyst that's paid 150K a year to help me do that. I had to do a lot of that myself. So I said, well, what if I actually just try to use GPT as a co-pilot? And to my surprise, something that would have taken 3 weeks, I got it done in 3 days. And so it blew my mind. And so that I would say would be my first introduction into actually using AI as my co-pilot, as my team member in the workflow. And so ever since I have operationalized or created, custom GPTs for repurposing my podcast materials into LinkedIn posting, into email sequence, into, other type of social media stuff. I've used it to audit my personal productivity, like my scheduling. I've used it to create responses, like customized responses, invites to webinars and events. I was just chatting with you before we got on the podcast that I yesterday I created a super negotiator custom GPT fusing the teachings of Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator, author of Never Split Anything, and Oren Clough, someone I train with personally and work with personally, who is the author of Pitch Anything and Flip the Script. These are like my favorite books on pitching and fundraising. I fuse them together, create a custom GPT, but in my voice, train it on how I talk about stuff. And then now I have a custom GPT that I can whenever I have find myself in a situation where I need to pitch something or negotiate something very difficult, I would just type in the context, and it gives me a suggestive framework of how to go about it and tactical things I can do. So I was sharing with you Sunday, I sent someone an email about something, and then I got ghosted. So I didn't hear from this person for many days. So what to do? And so that led me to creating this custom GPT. And then this morning, I decided to try it out. So I typed in, okay, well, I wanted to hear back from Scott about how he feels about this and that proposition. And then I haven't heard from him. What should I do now? So it gave me a very concise email script about how to do it using the teachings of these two authors. I used it, sent this person this email suggested by my super negotiator GPT. I got a reply within 5 minutes. So from being ghosted for 4 days to getting a reply within 5 minutes. You tell me. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So where are you seeing the operational inefficiencies where GPT can come in and start to like plug those gaps when it comes to, let's just say like an independent contractor, even like a real estate agent or a solopreneur, right? Who's trying to do everything themselves. Where are some of the first places that you've seen AI come in and like just blow your mind and make everything easier?
Yeah, so I just started to stand up this AI agency to help legacy industry business leaders. So these would be people in finance, in real estate, whether it's active or passive, to help look at how they could use AI. Right. So for the next couple months, because I'm still doing market research, I'm very happy to talk to anyone and offer this free audit and just have a chat because I'm super geeked out on this and it's fun for me. And we would do a very customized format. It would just be a conversation about, okay, well, what are the things that are highest the best of your use that only you can do? And what are the things that you're doing repetitively that you shouldn't be doing, or that your team is doing but not doing a very good job, or that you wish that you had a VA that could do this, right? So imagine we just figure it out. We customize the workflows for you. We set it up once, and then it works for you 24/7. So while you sleep, and it's so much dopamine hit whenever I press the button of output. I put in my input, and I'm just like, wow, watching the output from AI. It's the most amazing thing. So yeah, so right now, I welcome a chat. If you want to get in contact, you can come to my website. It's alicechencompanies.com. That has a little bit more of my background, and or you can email me. I will make sure that Aaron has my email address somewhere, in the caption, so that you really welcome this chat right now because I'm super geeked out. And if you want to chat about, high performance habits and auditing your productivity, or even creating something that clones your personal development coach, or if Aaron, you want to offer your coaching mastermind, the Aaron AI. Like if we want to clone you as a knowledge source, kind of like Tony Robbins has done, like it could easily be done.
So cool. I love it. This is like the day that I'm starting to opened my mind, I think, because between you and the guest we had inside of our coaching community this morning, my wheels are turning. And it's like one of those things, like I love how you use the analogy of the internet because it's just you don't know what you don't know. And then it just, completely changed our world, which we all know is happening, right? And so I feel like one of the old people that's like, oh, I'm not gonna need that. It's like, yeah, you do, and you're crazy if you don't. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to see where this goes, and I want to be one of your guinea pigs. I'm sure we could find some holes in my in my
Yes, let's
inefficiencies.
do it.
Yes. So where besides the website, where else can folks find you, follow you, get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'll just make sure to send you my email address, which is achen at phcfunds.com. That's Pender Hastings Capital Funds.com. That's our funds website as well, if you want to take a look. Or I will put in my LinkedIn.
We'll drop everything in the show notes. So yeah, thank you so much. I love like listening to you and your brain and your brilliance. It's really cool to hang around geniuses like you. And I love
Thank
getting
you.
to know you better. So thank you for being here today, Alice.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
And to all my friends out there, if your mind was blown, make sure you reach out to Alice and let her know, or send me a DM on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Official if there's some takeaway that you had. And if you are curious to get connected, I also love hearing from you and hopping on a call and making sure that I continue to connect you to all the resources you need on your wealth building journey so that you can go and continue to build a life you don't need a vacation from. Because if you're listening, you do not need to settle. You do not need to play small. The world is our oyster, it is limitless. There are so many incredible people in my community, in my tribe, that are bringing this value here on the podcast. And I just am obsessed with being the connector and the creator of community because I love seeing the minds expand and then our lives and our worlds expand as we continue to connect and bring value to one another. So, as always, I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.